Welcome all, wherever you are, whether it's morning, evening or night. It's great to be able to speak on this platform. Thank you, Sharon, for the opportunity. So I'll do a short intro to myself because many of you may say, oh, why Sebastian, are you speaking to me? So my career and my background, which I'll share on the next screen here, I've been very much aligned and been delivering data solutions throughout my whole career. I started my career back as a database administrator, so I've worked in Oracle, SQL Server, Sybase, Informix, back in the early, I wouldn't say the year, expose my age, but I've been in the city for about 20 years, working for the likes of UBS, ICAP, JP Morgan. I pivoted over to be a product manager for Dixon's Car Phone and released apps to the high street before joining HSBC around 4 years ago to work on a transformation program. Last year was the real core meat of me getting seeing what AI can do for a bank of HSBC stature, which I'll go into a little bit later on. I'm currently holding a role as the head of delivery for Google Cloud within the commercial banking space, which is incredibly challenging and also very rewarding. And again, using my data, my experience of data and leveraging what we're going to use AI for, I'll be able to pivot and present that to you all in a moment as we go through. So Katie really framed why AI, why now, and I want to basically just touch on that and in relation to technology, but it really is focused on data and AI. We've got so many advancements in the sector at the moment, and yes, you definitely do have to pivot. You do have to basically keep yourself ahead of the game. We've got Internet of Things, I'll say AI. Within the financial sector, we have blockchain, which is definitely revolutionizing how people, mainly outside of the financial sector, are paying, but we can see the challenges coming to the larger banks, and we can see the need to adopt and embrace those changes. Payments and cloud computing, I said I'm doing Google Cloud delivery, so it's very much the focus of my day job. We have to always look at these advancements and we have to predict what's going to be adopted, what's going to be used, where we need to be in the forefront, where we need to invest, how we need to see the future. These are all things that impact our customer behavior from internal and external. For a prime example are, if I look at my mother still wants to go to branch and deposit checks. But then I look at the younger generations, Generation Z, and so on and so forth, and they obviously want to process their information and payments via apps. The barriers to entry for the financial sector and technology have definitely lowered. We've got smaller companies like Monzo in comparison to HSBC, but doing tremendously well in fast forwarding their adoption of technology. I am also a Monzo customer as well as a HSBC customer, and I think it's amazing how they can tell you at the drop of a hat where you've spent your money, categorize it, and then obviously give you that insight and knowledge to predict how you want to process and provision your amounts of funds for the coming month or the coming week or the coming year. FCA regulation is still, I still feel very much behind technology. It's very much we're adopting Internet of Things now. Obviously my TV downstairs is the Internet of Things. Obviously it is the Internet of Things and I can control it that way. AI also, we have amazing councils, one which again Katie sat on, but it very much sometimes feels that regulation is put post the deployment of a lot of these new technologies in AI. So what we really need to do, and as Katie said, we are going to harness the UK becoming the thoroughbred base of how it basically should be, or the think tank between the US and China and other regions. But we definitely do have a challenge in FCA, because they're generally always asking us what is they doing, because there's a lack of understanding, which we're all trying to upskill and help each other collectively around. There's greater access to information. From my lens at HSBC, a bank with 150-year history, with the largest global footprint of 230,000 plus employees, the amount of data that we hold is incomprehensible. It's huge. And we have to, as a bank, ensure, and just as ensure as everybody else in the sector, we're able to leverage that data. By leveraging that data, we can cut costs, we can deliver better services to our customers, we can deliver better services to our clients, internal, our RMs, and our colleagues in branch, which I'll touch on later on. Investment in the sector is key, and it can be in many ways. It can be obviously sponsors of MVP programs, it's training, it's upskilling yourself, it's pivoting every single year. really it's time for everybody to ensure that with the adoption of IoT, blockchain payments, cloud, ML, deep computing, you are aligned, or you have the want and the wish to ensure that you can have the conversation with the likes of the rest of us. And it's amazing at the moment because there's so many resources to ensure that you can stay on top of the game, or you can stay aligned with the game, just as the Bodine search that Katie said earlier, where you can stay on top of what's happening in industry, what's happening in your sector, whether it's fashion, whether it's music, which is one of my biggest passions, whether it's, again, finance or sports, technology and data and how we're using that. Even going for sports, my greatest example at the moment is it Kipchenui, the two-hour marathon, and how Nike came together to use the drag technology, which again was built on data, which again was built on AI models to predict how the weather was going to be in Vienna on that day, to ensure that he was set up for success. Again, we're all able to leverage the sources that are around us. So what now? What's going on right now, and what's next? I'll talk about it now. As I said earlier, we're very rich with data at HSBC and within the banking world, and I am very much coming from a financial analytics background. We have analytics as a platform, and we're pushing forward to create value products for our customers. It's how we use that data richness to drive the thought pattern and to drive the behaviors, to ask the questions tomorrow that we're not asking of now. It's definitely available. As I see the big mathematicians board on there, and that says, Robert says, problems are not stop signs, they're definitely guidelines. And the wealth of data that we have with HSBC, with our huge background and our global footprint, we're able to, and we're doing a great job in leveraging these things for our AI platforms, which I'll show you in the next slide. What are our challenges going forward? There's definitely regulatory challenges, as I touched on earlier, from artificial intelligence. It's relatively, even though it's been around from a zeros and ones to where we've got chatbots now, there's still a lot of fear in the sector of how it can be used, how it can be exploited. We have cyber attacks on coming to HSBC on a daily basis, sadly. We have data privacy issues. Does the AI platforms and the leveraging and the insights that are provided by those platforms, what somebody would see in China, the same what somebody should see in Brazil? Possibly not. We have multi-cloud strategies that we need to basically take into consideration, and there are privacy laws for our AI solutions that are built across multiple streams and platforms that we need to take into consideration. Digital identification is really imperative, and it would be the addressing point to the data privacy. So, for instance, I would log on to HSBC UK, but then if I would go and use my Premier account in a different region, I possibly would have to log on in a different way using a different subset. Digital identification, to have that footprint across the globe, to create the borderless computing where we know where you are, what you are doing, what you should and should not have access to, is really utopia for us at the moment. But I know a lot of people are working towards that, and I am myself. So we're working towards getting to a solution, but I think we're still quite a long way off. But it's something that we can challenge ourselves with on a regular basis, all of us. If I move to where AI is being used in HSBC, we've got mainly chatbots. If you go onto your HSBC website, you'll have the pop-up, and it will formulate, again, referring to Katie, formulate that conversation. What would you like? How can I help you? And how is that helping us? It's reducing our call center times. It's reducing the number of people that need to ask those questions from a one-to-one basis. It's increasing the triage of those questions, so we know what our customers are asking for on a weekly, daily, regional basis. If we know that, for instance, with the COVID outbreak, there's a lot of questions right now about bounce back loans from whatever region you're in, we can ensure that our chatbots are empowered to read those conversations through the lenses, through the group sets, to at least give the initial advice of, you should be filling this form out, go to this place, go here, go there, this is where you need to go for additional information. It helps the customer get a little bit further forward in their conversation before having the need to speak to one of our call handlers. We're able to gain insight of what people and what the regions want, and overall, it gives us access to global markets, and it gives us easier access to what people want into those markets. And again, I've already touched on cost savings. If I go back now, flip to the infrastructure stack, because what I've talked about chatbots is very much client facing. We have AI Ops, and the proof of value that I ran last year was looking at how AI Ops can be used to consolidate, predict, and push forward, reduce costs, and reduce mean time to reports and mean time to detection. We have huge amounts of systems that are engaged in every single layer of the OSI stack, which report from logs, events, alerts to incidents. And an incident we would class as when somebody picks up the phone and you are called to, you need to actually action something. AIOps basically fits in at that stage between alerts and incidents to aggregate where we get to before that phone rings for that database or customer service engineer or the Cisco engineer. And I've worked with Splunk, I've worked with Big Panda, and I've worked with Moogsoft to look at their value propositions and look at the products that they're able to offer. I'm very happy to say that the trial was successful, and HSBC are definitely pushing forward with this, but due to due to restrictions, I can't really say exactly what we're doing. But AIOps is definitely a relatively new area. It was only on the Gartner report 2 years ago. So again, if you have skills in AIOps, you'd definitely be in hot property right about now. But it's good to both basically look at the front end and also how AI helps in the front end from chatbots, and then bring that back to infrastructure. Because a lot of people just see Tom Cruise and his, I forgot the name of the sci-fi film, but I'm sure the Minority Report and AI from that lens. But it's doing a lot of work back end, a lot of number crunching, which is going to save us costs and time, and also efforts, and improve our response to our backroom staff as well as our frontroom staff. So this is the last one for me, coming to a close. AI from the customer lens. I did talk about it in the last slide, but I'll just bring it to lens of what you can all do as a company and how you can adopt this. So as the shop line says, AI drives analytics, which produces insight, which empowers, from a banking lens anyway, our regional managers to branch colleagues to make the right decisions at the right time for all customers. Example, you go into branch, you want to apply for a loan. The customer teller is basically looking at your profile, and they can basically see the other products that you have. They can predict from your spending patterns what you may want in now, 3 or 5 years, and they can basically offer you a better value proposition. RMs on the road would go to an agriculture site or an agriculture farmer site and can present what's happening in the region as opposed to what's just happening for the customer. So it starts to bring in a bigger lens of just what you need, but what's happening in society, what's happening at your regional level, your local level, or even your streets. There are a few things I think to underpin, setting yourselves up for success. Data analytics operating model is just core. You need your data in a good shape. You need it in a unifying state so you can basically use it. Analytics will sit on top of that to drive that insight. There needs to be the culture of ecosystem within your environment to be looking at not just the data that you own, but also third-party data. How are you ingesting that? How are you using that? How are you massaging that and making it malleable so you can basically create a story of internal and external for the user needs of your information? Analytics should be seen as a service. It's very much, the view's very much changing. It was very much data, and you can see the way it's changing because we would have a CIO and CTO, whereas now you see CIO, CTO, CDO, and CDO. And CDO can be Chief Data Officer to Chief Digital Officer. So there's definitely the right view of where an analytics will sit within the right environment. There needs to be in continual integration with businesses. A company the size of HSBC is huge. I said 230,000 people with a number of internal banks in the bank. But from what you can do as a business and what you can do for yourselves is ensure that the alignment and integration between departments, your sales, your marketing, your distribution, transportation, advertising, customer service are aligned. So going back to the CRM example that Katie gave earlier, for the Asian restaurant, you will know what Katie eats, what her husband eats, how often they come into brands, did they come into the restaurant, how often, what they like to eat, when do they like to eat it, are they responding to a marketing campaign? All of these things come together. And again, most important is cultural adoption. If you are able to ensure that you are bringing your organization along through training, through showing it the benefits, through the removal of fear, because sometimes there's a lot of fear to change. AI is going to take everybody's jobs. That's not the case. There still needs to be a person there stewarding the ship. There needs to be many people there actually stewarding the ship, and to ensure that the models and the outputs that are coming from these models are correct, because they're as good as the information that we give to them. So that's me wrapping up. I hope I haven't gone over time. As said, thank you very much. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn if you don't find me. Here's my email and my Twitter. Thank you.